You don't have to run D&D very long before you start to notice that adventures have a natural pacing to them. It's the same pacing you would expect to find in a film or TV show, where the characters start off at a low level of danger, and then they discover that there's a looming threat, and they learn everything they can. They think, we can do this, and then they discover that they don't have all the information. In fact, they're doomed. They're all going to die a horrible death. But then they find some missing component they've been needing all along, and they think, we can really do it. We can fight the bad guy. They confront the bad guy. They have their final battle, and then they deal with the fallout of that final battle. That's the climax and the denouement. And this entire thing can just be one mini boss as part of a larger campaign that has more mini bosses until eventually they get to the campaign finale. And this is not a problem if you're talking about a TV show or a movie, because those have writers and directors. And they can make sure that any downtime between two moments of drama can be as short or as interesting as it needs to be in order to hold the audience's attention. Writers and directors don't have players to deal with, and players can really destroy the tension and the pacing of your campaign by hanging around for hours in this furrow between two moments of drama, spinning their wheels, not sure what to do, following dead ends, ideas, dumb ideas that they invented, and you've tried to communicate to them this is not going to help, and they don't listen. There's a million different ways your players can throw a monkey wrench into your pacing. The solution, or rather one solution, or rather, my solution is to use a B plot. Your B plot as opposed to the A plot, which is your adventure. You have your A plot, which is the adventure the characters are on, and then you have a completely different story thread. You have may not have anything to do with your A plot. Your A plot typically has some sense of urgency. There's a ticking clock. There's a time bomb. There is a final boss at the end of your adventure. That final boss wants something. They're trying to do something. And if you don't stop them, something horrible is going to happen. And that gives your adventure a sense of urgency. Your B plot, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily need to have an obvious sense of urgency, an obvious ticking time bomb. It can just be one of those things where the players think, we have to deal with this sooner or later. We have this other issue. We have the adventure, our A plot, that we have to deal with right now. But there's another threat. There's another problem. It's sort of simmering. It's not about to explode the way our A plot is, but there is some heat there. There is some action there. And we know we have to deal with it sooner or later. When you only have one plot line, you don't have a lot of tools to deal with pacing. When your players end up spinning their wheels for hours in a given session, and it's frustrating, and you just wish they would make a decision and get on with it, you're sort of at their mercy. Once you have two plot lines, you can use the second plot line to sort of disrupt things and light a fire under their butts, which is why the B plot is related to our earlier video, Orcs Attack. Your B plot is basically what happens if you take the Orcs Attack advice from the previous video, where you're just trying to break up your players' cycle of thought. So you throw some random monsters at them, and you imagine, what if they weren't random? What if they were working for someone and they had some larger goal? Now you've got a second plot line, and you can deploy that second plot line anytime you need to keep up the tension and keep up the pacing and stop your players from just spending hours circling the drain. We have a couple of examples of this from the live streams we've done. We started live streaming, years ago in my last campaign setting. You can watch some of those online. And during this campaign, the players are going through the adventure Night Below. There's a plot to kidnap a bunch of wizards and clerics, and the players are delving into the world below to find out who is doing this and how to stop them and recover these powerful wizards and priests. Meanwhile, in a completely unrelated storyline, the players were dealing with Lady Serial, the vampire queen, a former PC who had been turned into an evil NPC and was trying to collect the teeth of the dragon, a bunch of magic elf swords. The players had one of these swords, and they knew Lady Serial wanted to do something with them, but they didn't know exactly what, and they knew that she could, whatever her plan was, she couldn't pull it off without the sword that they had. And that meant that anytime the players had this period of downtime, either one that was planned that I wanted to spice up, or one that was self-imposed by the players and they were spinning their wheels, I could have agents of Lady Serial show up and try to get the sword. A B plot like that is fantastic for maintaining pacing and reminding the players. It's kind of analogous to when I was describing the process of building a tactical encounter, and you have your infantry and then you have your archers, but then you have either a brute or a glass cannon, because you don't want your players to only have one problem to solve. This is the same thing, but instead of with tactics, we're talking about the narrative, we're talking about the story. story, the players don't have only one problem to solve that we call the adventure. They have also a whole other problem they're going to have to solve eventually called our subplot, or the B-plot. Another example is the Somnium Tenebris from the Chain of Acheron. Early on in our stream, the players were boarding an illithid mined ship, and they wanted to take the ship. They had to fight the bad guys on it. They were trying to figure out what's going on in the ship. Where are all the illithids? Who's in charge now? And anytime they had a moment of peace where they thought maybe we could hole up in this room and rest, that's when I deployed the B-plot, which was Nails turning into a god. I deploy B-plots like Lady Serial trying to get the teeth of the dragon, or Nails becoming a god, not just because I don't want the player left to their own devices. The players will do undramatic things like spin their wheels for hours trying to solve a problem and just pull all the tension and drama out of an adventure. But I also use the B-plot because I like giving the players that feeling that the world is a complex, living place. There's never only ever just one problem to solve. Because frankly, I'm outnumbered. There are 5 and now 6 players in my D&D game. If there's only one problem to solve, they are going to figure it out, and probably pretty easily. But once there are 2 problems to solve, now keeping both of those plates spinning can be a real challenge. As far as I know, there's no formula for making a B-plot where I can give you a list of things to do, and if you do them, you will have a great subplot. But I can give you a piece of advice, which is to try to make sure that the subplot is something that you have control of the pacing over, not some pre-existing tension built into an adventure, not something the players can necessarily advance whenever they want. I was free to have Lady Serial's undead minions show up whenever I thought it was appropriate. I was free to turn the dial up on Nails' burgeoning godhood anytime I thought it was appropriate. I could let the issue lay fallow if I wanted to, or I could decide, nope, let's ratchet it up. In both instances, these were problems that the players knew we are going to have to solve this sooner or later. And in Lady Serial's case, they often debated, should we stop going through Night Below and figure out what's going on with Lady Serial? And had they done that, I would have been perfectly ready and willing to have an entire sub-adventure that was dealing with Lady Serial. But then Lady Serial's the A-plot, and Night Below becomes the B-plot. And just as they can't go through Night Below without dealing with this nagging other problem, they would not be able to solve the Lady Serial issue without the old ones from Night Below intruding and advancing their plot. That's it, folks. Short video. The B-plot is essentially what happens when you take orcs attack and you give the orcs their own storyline and their own goal, and they're attacking for a reason that you're in control of, and you can deploy whenever you think the players need a little kick in the butt and you want to ratchet up the tension. If you like this content and you want to support it, we don't run ads on these videos, but you can come by our store and pick up a copy of Strongholds and Followers, which is something that we're really proud of. It's got fantastic art. I think it's pretty fun to read, and there are a lot of interesting systems in it that I predict you will want to steal at least 1 or 2 of. Strongholds and Followers was a pretty big hit. We're already working on the follow-up, Kingdoms, Organizations, and Warfare. There's a link in the doobly-doo if you want to get an email alert when the Kingdoms and Warfare Kickstarter goes live. There's rules for running duchies and baronies. There's rules for you and your friends deciding that you want to play an entire order of monks or a thieves guild. And there are updated rules for the warfare system with more robust options in it. We also have a Patreon where I put up my notes for forthcoming adventures until the adventure's wrapped up, and then I put the notes online for everybody to read. Also, if you just wish there was more running the game style content and you get tired of waiting for me, you can always go by my friend Jim Murphy's channel. I'll put a link in the doobly-doo. He does videos like these that give us his perspective, and he's certainly one of, I would say, in the top 2 DMs I've ever played with. You should at least go check out Jim's channel and bug him about publishing his rules for the Teeth of the Dragon. Also, another friend of mine, Liz, who I used to think of as an illustrator and now I think of as a fantasy author, has joined the ranks of fantasy authors, and I want to give a shout out to a fellow writer. You can go to Amazon and check out her book. Us writers got to stick together. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Next week, we will revisit Law and Chaos. Until then, peace out.